Won't you lend your lungs to me? Mine are collapsing. Plant my feet and bitterly breathe up the time that's passed. Breath I'll take and breath I'll give. Pray the day's not poised. Stand among the ones that live in lonely indecision.
Hello, James.
Hello, Lynn.
It's October 5th, and we just talked a couple days ago, but I wanted to get on the phone again with you so we could do a little Halloween episode.
Okay, that sounds good. Hopefully I will have a Halloween story done for this Halloween. I know I will. It'll be part of a bigger series, and it will finish up for Christmas. So I'll do the same thing I did with the White Christmas.
Oh yeah, that's
pretty much where. So it's animal control, and Ishmael, the checkered demon, and the sea daddy helped me work out how this. We've got an aspiring rapper who is a Tommy Sotomayor fan. He gets kicked out of his gang set. He's walking sulkily along the road into the county at the same time that this drunken redneck who's all pissed off at the world because his boss won't let him have off for deer season, for buck season, is looking along the side of the road seeing if he could pop a deer. He's got his gun loaded, his 30-30, and then he accidentally runs. Of course, LL Coon J, okay, is of course walking in the drive lane.
Right.
And Cooter Boone is looking off the side of the road. So the last minute, he rolls his Dodge Ram pickup, trying to avoid splattering LL Coon J, and he gets ejected because he doesn't have a seatbelt on, and it rolls over and it squishes both of them and their hats. His John Deere hat that hasn't been washed in 20 years, and LL Coon J's brand new fitted hat that he just got from the Korean store yesterday. They fly up in the air and they fall on the heads of these two unlikely bystanders. A raccoon who was skeptically eyeing the road with all these shenanigans going on with these deranged apes, and the deer, the buck. I think he's an 11-point buck who was very nervous about Cooter.
An 11-point buck?
So now Cooter is in the deer and the rapper is in the raccoon. Okay? And they decide to take on the world of men and pay them back.
Oh.
They're both misanthropes. This will be a misanthropic Halloween.
Yeah.
We'll do the first couple stories, but before Halloween, but we got so into it drinking whiskey and talking about the possibility of there being a general animal uprising. And, because you got rats, crows, cats, dogs, you've got all these abused dogs, and a lot of them are trained fighters and stuff. How would there be a general animal insurrection?
Oh.
So it's going to be like Frosty the Snowman's hat in a way.
Yeah.
So there's something's going to happen with, I've got to put the blood memory thing in there for my white nationalists. So there's going to be, something's going to happen. There's going to be a little bit of blood on the hats, and these animals are actually going to become sentient. So be a little bit like Buzz Bunny, where they're not actually talking because they don't have the hiatal bone and everything, but they're going to be telepathically communicating with each other about how to get rid of the humans. So it's just going to be through Thanksgiving and Christmas, urban animals rising up and slaughtering the denizens of Baltimore. I think I'll get killed in this too.
Oh,
I'll make sure they get me. Yeah, they'll catch me heading down Caucasian Avenue and do something horrible. I think the rats are going to drag me into a sewer or something. So anyways, that's the story for this year.
2017 Halloween
Animal
story.
Control.
Animal
and
control.
that was C Daddy's idea, and he came up with it because we thought, the police aren't going to do anything to these animals. They would call animal control.
Yeah.
And then the animals, that's when the big breakout's going to happen, because then the deer and the raccoon are going to take over the animal control van, and they're going to let these other animals loose. Right.
Yeah, raccoons are very clever. They have good fingers. They can open car doors, and well, I don't know if they can, but in your story they can. Let's say.
Oh well, that's what we were working out with.
Yeah.
These fellows have spent more time with coons and raccoons than I have. So, and deer. So
I have spent time with raccoons and skunks and stuff too.
And I was informed that my initial idea for the raccoon mounting Cooter Boone's 30-30 on the antlers of the deer and using the deer kind of like a Humvee, that this would work, but he would only be able to fire the one round that was in the chamber.
Yeah,
so the big adventure is going to start with the deer's going to realize this, because the deer knows about weapons, although he can't use them. He's going to tell the raccoon what kind of weapon they need that he would be able to work the action of.
Oh.
Okay, and then they're going to be like this 2-animal death machine.
Yeah, well, and deer are very dangerous too. They will attack people, so you can definitely have the deer do some damage on his own too.
Oh yeah. We're definitely we're probably going to have some X-rated deer on human action.
That's not what I meant.
Well, there'll be some, dark red R-rated violence too, but there's actually a couple of herds of deer in Baltimore City now, living in Baltimore City.
Wow.
Right. So there's going to be like a built-in carpool for the raccoon army.
Oh yeah.
There. Yeah. So this should be pretty good. They'll actually be able to use deer to get around, and I think so we worked out all the different things. So, how you would have to work alliances with cats and rats and dogs and.
All those factions could work.
Yeah. So it would be a mess. It would take a Clintonian raccoon to pull this off.
I think you got the guy, LL Coon J.
Yes, LL Coon J.
James, what was Halloween like when you were a kid for you?
Oh, I remember we really used to look forward to it. My brother and I would go out first with our sister, who would hold us up because she was younger and she was a girl. And then after we got done escorting her around the immediate couple block radius in our neighborhood, then we would go out for the real candy.
You're the oldest, right?
Yes, but my brother and I were only 11 months apart.
Oh, wow.
Right, so
that's really close.
Yeah, we made a pretty good team of candy gatherers.
That's Irish twins.
Yeah. I never heard of that.
Oh, really? Yeah, if babies are born less than a year apart, that's Irish twins.
Irish twins. So we're Irish twins.
Yeah.
And there was, I remember a couple of adults in the neighborhood. This would be, there was no Halloween to speak of when I moved to Pennsylvania, because I was 13 when we moved up there. The last time I went out for Halloween, I was 11. There were a couple of adults in the neighborhood who would get drunk and they would sit on the porch and they would demand a trick for a treat. So you would have to do some kind of trick or tell a joke or something like that. I thought that was fun. It was a little bit intimidating, wondering if this old drunk guy with the tattoos and a cigar was going to think your joke was funny. But they always thought the joke was funny, and they always thought the trick was neat. So
yeah,
so that was nice.
And what about when your kids were small?
Halloween was pretty much done in Baltimore City by the time. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't send your kid out for Halloween, even when my oldest son was a kid. So what we would do, and a lot of people do this, my mother and my sister lived, and they still live, out in Bel Air, which is 30 miles out of town. It's a suburban place that's, it's suburban America. It looks like every other suburban place across America, and it's a safe place to trick or treat. So people who were still stuck in the city or close to the city line their parents will drive them out to their grandparents' neighborhood, wherever their grandparents fled to get away from the crime, so that they could trick or treat then. So there wasn't really anything like that for either one of my sons in the neighborhood where I lived. And when this was going on, I was working so much that I would know that my wife took them out there, but it's not like I had anything to do with it. Yeah. I was just earning. I do remember my oldest son, when he was 8, the pumpkin him and I carved together got smashed like the night before Thanksgiving, or the night before Halloween. Oh. And it was a Halloween that it snowed. And I was walking home from work, and he even named the pumpkin.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, and he was a real sensitive kid. And as I was walking home from work, I'm seeing the pieces of this pumpkin on the sidewalk. So I picked them up, and I put the pumpkin back together with toothpicks.
Oh.
I just used toothpicks, kind of like stitching. And he thought that I had improved the pumpkin a great deal. It was like a Frankenstein pumpkin.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm pretty good at telling short, fantastical lies to people that are before the age of suspicion. One time I was at the dojo when I was working the speed bag. That's something that, I could do it as good as the young guys. And at this place, I was really the only one that could work it because it was a karate place. And none of those people took the time to learn it. So I'm doing it. And this kid, his name's Christian. His grandmother liked me. So this 10-year-old kid, he asked me, he said, "James, how did you get so good at that?" And the MMA pro that I'm coaching at the time, I heard him moan because he knew I was going to come up with some tall tale. And the thing is, I told the story to the kid while I was looking at him and while I was still hitting the speed bag, so he was really impressed.
Pretty impressive, yeah.
I said, okay. But it's like riding a bike. It's really easy to do once you get used to it. And it kind of depends on the setup. So I told him, I said, when the Mongols captured me and my men, the Khan cut off one of my men's heads, and he put it in a sack. And he told me, he said, "You've got to punch this head all night long, and every time you miss, I'm going to cut another head off of one of your men."
Oh, that's
so
awful.
I told him, I said, so that's how I saved my whole troop of cavalrymen. That way, I punched that head in the bag all night long. And then the Khan let us go in the morning. And he said, "Really? That really happened?" And the MMA pro behind me, he said, "James, you can't lie to him like this. You can't do this." And Christian, he believed me much more than this guy. And he looked up at me. He said, Is it just a story, Mr. James, or is it true?" I said, I kind of made up part of it. I said, "What the Mongols? It was the Apaches." And he went running up front to his grandmother to tell her that I learned how to hit the speed bag because these Apaches had me prisoner. And he had the same story. And it turns out she's like half Cherokee, right? and she's just liberal. And here I painted all American Indians. She's just about to the point where she's going to tell her son that he's like part Asian, part white, part black, and part American Indian. She's about ready to throw the fourth race in there, and I've just painted them as these bunch of savages. So needless to say, that didn't go as planned. She still did cook me that spaghetti dinner, though.
Oh,
so I would tell stories like this to my youngest son, and there was a possum that came in our yard, and my son got his wooden sword out that I had made him and insisted on chasing this thing down the street. So he chased it down the street to the bottom of the street. And in the city, these things, and cats and raccoons also, will go into the sewer. And this thing goes into the sewer. And it hisses at his first. So this is the way I walk to the bus stop at night. So he's staying up to watch me go to work. He's only 4 or 5. He's staying up to watch me go to work. And I wanted to know why he was up. And his mother said, he's got a question for you. He's really worried. He wanted to know if I thought Hiss would jump me on the way to the bus stop. So I showed him the highly illegal foot-long gravity blade that I kept under my bandana on my hip, which is really cool because wearing a bandana on my hip made a lot of people think I was a faggot because it was the way gay guys signal. So it would keep the cops away because they're like, oh, this guy's just trying, this guy's out here trying to sell himself or whatever. And that's what I had my knife under. And, of course, that didn't comfort his mother at all, knowing that I was walking around with this weapon that I could transfix somebody with. But it made him feel better. So he would ask me for his updates. I would make up things. And lots of times what I would do is I would just replace a hood rat or a dog.
Yeah.
Something happened to a hood rat or a dog, and then I would make it a Hiss story. He was a little bit skeptical all the time that Hiss threatened to shoot me because I wouldn't give him $3. But so I tried to be a fun dad.
Yeah, I think you were. Did you ever have to hand out candy? You said that there wasn't much trick-or-treating in your neighborhood, so you probably didn't have to hand out candy.
On Halloween, I would be at home taking my 2 or 3 hour nap right when the trick-or-treaters came around, which would only be oppressed youth who would be just like my wife had taken my son out to Bel Air.
All right.
Some girl from the projects had taken her kids up to my neighborhood because it was relatively safe. So I would keep the light off, and I would sleep through the knocking and the banging. Then at 9 o'clock, right about when trick-or-treat stopped, I'd get up and I'd go to work, and I would see the real Halloween in Baltimore was really all about adults dressing up. In Baltimore City, Halloween, other than a few really nice neighborhoods where they have organized trick-or-treats and the upscale locations, Halloween's really about adults dressing up and going out and getting drunk and getting high.
Yeah, I was going to ask what is the local Baltimore tradition. So now you're getting into that.
That's the primary tradition. Second tradition for the kids that really know how to have fun.
That's what I police out there.
Now that's the fire engine.
Oh, it's a fire. Okay.
The police went by right before you called, so apparently, maybe that has something to do with that or not. I don't know. But the chopper was circling this neighborhood last night at a real steep angle. They were trying to catch somebody last night for work. You could tell the way the rotors sound when this thing is really cutting.
Yeah.
Tight circle. Well, the other tradition in Baltimore, we don't really have much of a moving night like they do in some cities, where kids just go around and vandalize. Our youth in Baltimore are more responsible than that. They go out and they beat people up and they rob them, and they try to stomp homeless people to death.
Oh.
Which, really, if you think about it, is much more useful socially than just, tagging places with graffiti and throwing eggs at cars and toilet paper and trees. So I think our hood rats have it together. And that's where this also happens in New York. And there was a story about a couple of homeless guys that got stomped to death up in New York, maybe about 10 years back. And we've had it happen here. We had a guy burned to death in his little cardboard box here in Baltimore a couple of years ago. And it's since it's a night where the cops kind of turned a blind eye towards groups of kids running around, back when cops used to care. It's traditionally when you seriously go out and try to break a hooker's leg down at Morrell Park, or stomp out a bum by the train tracks or something like that.
Jeez.
So the way that Big Ron's got a lot of sympathy for these guys too. the way these bums have it, you got the railroad police beat the hell out of them for hanging out by the railroad tracks. You've got the hood rats going after them. And, there's a lot of predation against these people. So the idea behind the Hood Rat Halloween would be that these three unique characters would get together and for protection. And one of them's a guy that really needs protection. The other two are formidable men, but the sympathetic character in this, I even forget his name. He's the guy that has the trick box story. So they each pronounce Halloween differently because you got the Jamaican guy, Halloween, and then you've got the country guy that says Halloween, and then you've got the other guy that says Halloween. And of course, this story, it's really spelled Halloween instead of Halloween. None of them get it right.
Yeah, I just want to back up and say you're talking about your book, A Hood Rat Halloween, and I'll link to it in the show notes.
I was accused of being a racist for this story because none of the three, they're all black characters. All the sympathetic characters in the story are black. And the bad people are pretty much all white. But I was still accused of being a racist because none of these three guys knew how to spell
Halloween.
Okay? They all misspelled it and they all mispronounced it, but they do.
Yeah.
I know these guys. These are based on guys I knew. Okay? And guys that I talked to, and they each have their own story, and the one guy is a real arrogant, full of himself, and you could tell with all these guys, you could tell their stories about something that happened to them, and this is all in the shadow of the fact that packs of hood rats are about to come out looking for him.
There's Regimon. Okay, I got it open here. Regimon is, I think he's like the ringleader. He's the
Regimon Thumb. Yeah, this is his fire.
Yeah.
He's like the head homeless guy. He keeps the fire.
And then you have Simp Collier.
Yes. That's the little guy with the trick box story.
And then I think the last guy is Otis Jackson.
Yes, Otis Jackson's a big bruiser who actually him and Simp have some history. He's a guy who just got out of prison. He's a rapist. He's a strong-arm robber. It's not clear if he's a murderer or not. He's going to try to usurp the homeless throne and take Regimon's spot at the crossroads where the burn barrel is.
Yeah.
And so you see this more or less from the perspective of Simp. That there's this dynamic going on, and you got the tall, thin, cagey Jamaican with his story about ghetto magic when he was in Detroit and this different stuff, and then you've got Otis Jackson's story. Is just it's what I've heard a lot from people who don't know the Old Testament very well, and it's a lot of fun listening to mishmash stories. Ghetto versions of what's in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So his story is about black Israel might, okay? And every time he says it, he makes his muscles good. So anyhow, and you can tell his story is about himself too, because black Israel might is the illegitimate son of a Jewish slumlord.
That's right.
And which is him. I think there's a character named Whitey Know-It-All in there. My friend Oliver, I have not heard from Oliver in months. I'm afraid maybe he got kidnapped by a bunch of oversexed Amazons, or he's in prison or something. He has a habit of getting kidnapped by chicks and ended up in a different city. I mean, he's got something going on the rest of his guys don't have going on. I don't know what it is. I mean, but every once in a while, some chick drags him away to a different city, and you see him a year or two later. He liked it so much. He said it reminded him of a horror story that was a black, a B-grade black-made movie that was a horror story set in the hood. And he thought it reminded it of him. He can do the Jamaican accent and he can do the other accents. So I think he's got half of it recorded.
Oh, he does? Oh, really?
But his recordings keep on getting interrupted by his son or daughter.
Oh.
Okay, so he's raising his own 2 children, so it was difficult for him to do. But yes, I guess someday it'll be out. He's he has been working on it for a year or 2.
That'll be really great. That'll be really. I will look forward to that.
He's got a great voice.
He has some Jamaican background, right?
He was born in Jamaica.
Okay.
He returns to Jamaica regularly. Maybe he's in Jamaica helping his grandmother out with something.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because he did have to go down there and try to get her affairs in order. So anyhow, that's where A Hood Red Halloween comes from. You can sit down and you can read it in, I guess, 2 hours. It's about a 2-hour read. And I listened to Tracy Chapman the whole time I wrote this.
Oh, that's good.
So there's some quotes in there from
her lyrics. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a particular song of hers that convinced me to go a certain way with this story.
Mm.
So I think I probably end up quoted something. I probably quoted most of the lyrics to that song throughout the story.
Yeah. I saw one. I did. I like the way that your listening habits affect your writing, especially your fiction.
Well, I like putting fiction. I like putting music on when I run fiction because my boss, my landlord is the boss of a bunch of other people, and he runs his business out of the room below me. And right now I'm listening to his conversation with some technician that screwed up on something. So I pretty much, you could probably download my brain and get like the whole operational history of his business. I can listen to this stuff while I'm writing nonfiction, but not while I'm writing fiction. So I use music for that, and the music does intrude. So I try to pick music that's the right mood. And now you did put up videos of the room.
Yeah.
Now, when I moved in here, he actually kicked out a guy so that I could move in here.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
It was the same guy that I had previously fired. And this guy's girlfriend also wanted to go out with me. I didn't go for the trifecta. I wasn't that. People were trying to tell me, yeah, you ought to do his girlfriend too, and just like total clean sweep dominance. But no, I couldn't.
Oh.
The guy's name was Son. And he did me a favor once. So I wouldn't do that to him. Anyhow, there's no drop ceiling below this room. It's just the bare boards.
Oh.
And there's actually, there's a spot where I have like a green towel in the middle of the room. There's 2 loose boards there, and there's actually a crack. If I wanted to, I could sweep my dust down into Steve's office. I'm a better guy than that. So now, Solomon didn't have any of the furniture that I brought. All he had was this 100-year-old bed that came with a house.
Oh.
And it was in the middle of the room, right over top of those loose floorboards. There was a lady that lived up the street who Steve described as a very unfortunate-looking woman.
Hmm.
She used to pay Saul's rent. She would give it right to Steve. Okay, because she didn't want Saul to blow it up his nose or smoke it or drink it. She wanted Saul to live here because it was only like 10 doors down for her. She would pay
Tell
Saul's.
me something I don't want to know.
She would pay Saul's rent, and she would come down here, weekly, bi-weekly for her appointment.
Mm.
Okay? And apparently, whenever Saul was getting busy with a lady, he liked to think of himself as John Travolta in Urban Cowboy. And he would cheer himself on, like, yeehaw, okay, and slap objects, okay? We'll leave it at that. And one time, Steve he's got this guy that's a new account. This could be like, this could be a big thing for his business. He's in the office downstairs, and then the floorboards overhead start creaking, and you hear this, yeehaw, giddy up.
It's time to go for a walk.
Right. So Steve's got to spend $100 taking this guy to a good restaurant so he can clinch this deal.
Oh
So
my gosh.
He's like,
we need to
this
go right
dude's
now.
right. So this dude's got to go. So when he found out I was looking for a place, he's like, all right, I'm going to give this dude 2 weeks to get out, and then that's it. But anyhow, I just had to. Saul's a great Halloween character, so I just had to throw that one in there. So when I moved in here, the only thing, aside from the pretty much destroyed bed that had lots of cigarette burns in it, the only other object in the room was a pyramid of cigarette butts on the floor.
Ew.
When I cleaned it up, and there was nicotine stains all over the place. It took my sister and I a day and a half to clean the room. When I cleaned up the cigarette butts, I did find an ashtray buried underneath it.
Oh, that's very good. Good housekeeping right there.
He used to eat McDonald's food and throw the trash out the window, and it would land on the roof of the porch.
Oh,
so I could actually step on the roof of the porch if I go out my front window.
Wow.
And I cleaned up most of it, but there was this one chicken McNugget honey mustard sauce packet that had landed upside down on a shingle that wouldn't come off. And I was afraid I was going to pull the shingle up, so I just let it be.
Yeah.
And that thing stayed on the roof for 3 years until we finally had like 2 feet of snow with ice underneath of it. And then when ice swept off and went down into the yard, the ghost of Saul finally departed from Caucasian Avenue.
Plantation House. Oh my
Right.
gosh. Wow. Well, you're brave to take over that room, but it looks really nice now. You like what you've done with it. Yeah.
Oh, Steve hands out boxes of raisins.
Oh, for Halloween. That's always sad. That's the really saddest thing.
and you know what he does? It works out really good because he can just leave the basket out on the porch.
Yeah.
Okay, and everybody just takes one if they take any at all. So.
Yeah. They have like little trail mix packets or even Play-Doh jar. You can hand out tiny jars of Play-Doh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There was one thing about this house. For the first few years I lived here, until actually Steve was acquired by a woman and she took over his life. Mm. He had this little plastic pumpkin that sat year round on the porch. Mm. And it used to creep AJ out so much. She's like, you live in a serial killer house. I know you live in a serial killer house. Yeah. And she's not the only person that creeped out. And it had a good mojo. I think that mojo's still, nobody's ever even tried to break into this place. Mm. When I first moved in here, he never locked the doors. First thing when I was hauling all my weapons in, first thing he made me promise was if somebody broke in, I'd give him a chance to use his karate before I came downstairs and started pinning people to the wall. So, yeah, and then a poor woman moved in, and it's like this martial arts tower of death. The front door is hanging open all year long, all night long. Nobody comes in. It's the 2 creepy white guys live there.
Oh man, sounds like fun.
And they never know when I'm around because I don't drive. So
yeah, you're like a ghost.
Yes, that's a good security thing. Anyhow, so that's about all the creepy business I have about.
Oh, there's another siren.
This is a police car.
Okay.
Yeah, he's booking too. Caucasian Avenue is a thoroughfare. It is. It's the best street. By the way, speaking of Caucasian Avenue, 2 Caucasian men in their 60s and 70s were killed at the other end of Caucasian Avenue this year. And one of them just died the other day. I think it was Monday. Oh.
Of his injuries or some other?
He was shot on Monday, I believe.
Oh.
The older man that was in 79, he was stabbed back in January. Wow. So that's on the border of a different kind of neighborhood. It's where Sedonia and Hazelwood meet, where White Avenue kind of dies down there.
Okay.
And
do people really need to know where you live, James?
Oh, well, I'm not. Yeah, I live
So you can come
in
and
Northeast Baltimore,
yeah.
Hamilton. Yeah, yeah. Look, I'm not hard to find. I mean, anybody that's qualified to kill me doesn't need my help finding me. Okay,
Right.
so right. So I'm not going to give an address out or anything like that. But this the portion of White Avenue that I was describing, I would like people to go there looking for me if they want to do me harm. I think it would be a good idea. Okay. All right. Okay, so.
All right. Well, I really liked your other. You have another Halloween story, which is it a sequel? Skulker Jones is that a sequel to the Hood Rat Halloween?
Yes, Oliver wanted me to do a sequel,
Oh,
and he wanted to know what happened to. There's a spell.
yeah.
Yeah. Regimon's a sorcerer, okay? And there's a being, the Negro of the Sands, okay? That's this legendary being that can come up out of the ghetto at any time. And Oliver wanted me to do a sequel that would focus on that.
Yeah,
So
it's really good. That's one of my favorites. That's one of the ones I think I started picking up your fiction was because you started Skulker.
oh, thank you. Well,
Yeah,
Stalker is basically me,
yeah, I
okay?
picked
Only
up on
older,
that.
only even older, and the guy, the fighter, the chopper's overhead too. So they're
Oh,
trying to get somebody. The guy he's looking for, the fighter he's looking for, is Slippy Braxton.
and that's
That's
Oliver.
Oliver.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I just, I didn't go through, I didn't actually do backflips with character development there. The backstory, and see, I always wanted to put this in a story. The backstory of Skulker Jones is his name is Tom Jones.
Yeah.
And his name is Tom Jones because I think the only person his mother ever had sex with was she was one of these women. I used to see this when I was a kid. My mother and the other ladies in the neighborhood used to watch the Tom Jones show where this guy would sing with his bare hairy chest, stage. And these women used to throw their bras up on
Yeah.
stage. Okay? So Tom Jones' mother threw her bra up on stage, and it came back with a note attached to it. So she got to go backstage and meet Tom Jones, and she got pregnant.
Well, I will
So
say
this
that,
guy is the illegitimate son of Tom Jones.
yeah, I like another Tom who died, which was Tom Petty. I'm sad about that.
Tom Petty died.
Yeah, he died a few days ago.
Oh wow!
But I
Sorry
never
to hear
saw
that.
him perform, but that just reminded me of that. So this guy is sort of like the spiritual child of Tom Jones, but actually the son of a disgusting roadie that intercepted his mother.
Yes, that's right. She never actually made it to Tom Jones. I mean, she got passed off because that's I talked to roadies before about how this works, and it's like only the hottest chick makes it to the store backstage.
Right.
The other ones basically smooth her passage by getting picked off by the roadies. And all. Okay, so yeah, but she at least named him Tom Jones.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got some
Which,
he's
but
got
let's just
intergenerational
say,
redemption.
but
What's
let's
that?
say that that's completely fictional. That's not you, right? Because Tom Jones is like mostly you, but you are not conceived in that way.
No.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Dad managed the print shop.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
But the setting is in the future, so it's me if I made it to 80, basically, and it's in this extreme anarcho tyranny setting
Yeah.
where you have neighborhood militias, where you have I really think that BLM, Black Lives Matter, I think that's going to end up being a paramilitary militia in the United States.
I think it's really believable the way you describe it because I think you have BLM and then you have the Muslims, and I don't know if it's
Yes.
like Nation of Islam or actual real Arab Muslims or what that are in your story, but that's already exists in Europe where they have these Sharia neighborhoods where the cops don't
Right.
go, and then you just whatever happens there, it's your business. So
Yeah,
very
so the big
believable.
the big thing that's going on is they're excavating Holy Redeemer Cemetery, a Catholic cemetery, to get materials for building a mosque in northeast Baltimore. So that's kind of going on in the background as he's trying to find his fighter, who's possibly got somebody trying to kill him. So that's Skulker Jones, and I think it's the best ending that I've done so far.
I really like the ending, and you didn't put it online, and so I had to buy the book. So you did a good job on that one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm glad. I got a sale.
Yeah, that was before I got you to send me all your books for free. So now I don't have to buy them anymore. No, I still buy the occasional hard copy. Because they're good.
The song, the Tracy Chapman song, Crossroads, inspired the first one. The song that inspired the second one was Rolling Stones' song, Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah. That comes across. I don't know if you wrote about it, but it definitely comes across in the story. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like an Ebonic version of Sympathy for the Devil.
Yeah. So those are two really good stories for the listeners who want to read something for Halloween. And then there are a couple of others that are not strictly Halloween themed, but that are good for the season. Which is one is Hemavore, which is a vampire story. Is that right? Tell me about Hemavore. You published it with Mesclin Franklin?
Yeah, Mesclin Franklin published it. I wrote it with S.L. James.
Okay.
And it was an interesting 4 years writing that.
Wow, that's a long project.
Yeah, and I have ones longer now. I think I'm 7 years now on Seven Moons Deep. Which I guess somehow maybe that works out numerologically.
You know what? Yeah, you know which one I like that you're working on. I guess it's not really Halloween themed, but it's the Filthy Few that you're working on with Sam Finlay.
You know what? I'm just writing stories about these jerks getting locked up, these reprobates getting locked up.
Yeah.
So I think I'll set it. Downtown Charlie Brown will get locked up on Halloween. Okay, so I'll make that a Halloween story too, because I hadn't picked out the time of the year yet. I know the three bums he's going to be dealing with. He's a predatory homosexual biker.
Oh God.
Okay. who hates cops. He's a cop killer too. He's going to be the filthiest of the filthy few. This guy is the worst. He's the absolute worst guy of the bunch. Okay. Downtown Charlie Brown. Right.
Oh.
He's this rural Caucasian biker who drives into Detroit to rape homeless black dudes. He's kind of like that Panzram, I based him on him.
Oh.
So he's like Panzram with a motorcycle and a beard and a really sick sense of humor.
Oh.
Right? Makes him a lot like my friend Ron Bone, who's not with us anymore.
Yeah. I read about Ron Bone.
Right.
Okay, so let's see, James. We've talked about Hemavore, and what about Doomfawn? I don't think I've read that one.
Okay, well, Doomfawn, there are 2 short stories in there that I wrote just for it. It didn't appear on, no parts of them appeared online or in anything else. One of them is What Women Want, I think, is the name of it. It's a story of brutal emasculation, as is If the Fates Seem to Be Against You. So both of the main stories in Doomfawn came to me directly. I was the same MMA pro that was in the gym while I was telling the kid about, having to punch a skull all night long to keep my men from being killed by the con. Okay. We stopped at a Chinese buffet one night and ate a whole bunch of this fried seafood and discussed the mystery of him being unable to make light heavyweight. And while we were cracking open our fortune cookie, I got this fortune that read, if the fates seem to be against you, They probably are. He's a superstitious Puerto Rican kid. He wasn't sure if he wanted me to get into his car. And then when we pulled off the parking lot, he almost gets in a car accident.
Oh, no.
And again, he's almost like, should I make you walk home, James? Or it's like, no, man, this is not happening. Don't worry about it. So what I did is I wrote a story that made it that, yeah, it was a curse. Mm. And life just starts going downhill for this guy as soon as this happens. I forget the guy's name. He's a poor sap based on many guys that I've worked with in supermarkets before. Yeah. The other one, you know what? Hell, I forget the title of it.
Oh, let's see. I have it open.
It's the main story, and it's based on a text I got from a phone number that I never saw before. I passed out writing, and I woke up with all these O's. I guess my nose fell asleep on the O. My nose fell on the O key. My cell phone woke me up buzzing. It was a text, and it said, "Wake up to the beautiful storm outside of your window."
Oh, the title is "Wake from Your Dream Place."
Right. It just said, "Wake from your dream place to the beautiful storm outside of your window."
Oh, how creepy.
Okay, I think I put that in. And I also put down what he was accidentally typing with his nose. And
it's like a Ouija board with your nose.
This startled me.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no. I looked at the time. I'm late for work. I get dressed in a hurry. I start walking down the street. And I'm falling asleep walking down the street. And then these boxes of frozen spinach that I'm carrying down the aisle fall out of my hands, and they wake me up when they hit the tile. But there is no aisle, and there is no frozen spinach, and there is no tile. I'm just stumbling down this dark street. And I saw what was either a very large fox or a coyote. I mean, my sight wasn't even that clear. I was kind of disoriented. And then I realized that I didn't work that night. This was my night off. Because I was extremely sleep deprived. So I was hallucinating on top of getting that message. And I kept that message on my phone for a while. I really got that. So that story is based on that. And it's really a story of transmogrification about changes start to overtake this guy. And he's as disoriented about these changes as I was that night after I had been up for a few days writing and working.
Wow.
And I think that's one of my better earlier stories.
Yeah, I will read it. I'm really happy that we got to talk about these because I wanted to do something to coordinate with a holiday, and I know that your readers like these kind of stories, so they can find these in time for Halloween.
Thank you.
I'll link them. You're welcome. So I think that will do it for today. That was the spooky Halloween episode of the Crackpot podcast, episode 12. Okay. If we had done a better job, we could have made it episode 13, but maybe we'll do something else special for episode 13. We'll have to come up with something.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, James, and everybody. We'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, Lynn.
We'll meet again under the sun every 12 minutes.